Hi guys, it's Dimensional Sight back with another video of Mount Kailash taken from a different angle. I did not take this picture. This picture was taken off the internet just like the other one was. Uh, Went to start page, anything larger than 10 megapixels, and it's going to be one of your top 5 or 10. So you guys can all go find this yourself. The thing about these pictures when you find them on the internet is you should always keep in mind that there's a potential that things have been scrubbed from the image, things have been changed on the image. But for the most part, I think that everything that we're going to see today in this video is has not been scrubbed. It's all just it's just a regular picture that was put on the internet. Um, and it's funny because in this one, from this angle, in my last video, I talked about how Mount Kailash looks like a giant building, and I'm sticking by that. But when you look at it from this side, I am seeing some signs that there was either a giant mud fossil as part of this structure, or they built it to look that way, because there are some signs of a biological creature from this side. So I'll show you those things. There are some anomalies as well that we can look at, and we're also going to look quite a bit at just the actual structural building elements on this side as well that we can see and compare it to some of the modern day buildings that are left over from the past, like Hindu temples, and we'll compare those to what this looks like. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the contrast down a little bit here. We'll put the shadows up on this one. I think we're going to keep the brightness all the way up, and highlights we'll just keep it in the middle. Um, so down in the lower right hand corner, that's the first thing I noticed when I was because the first thing I did was start looking at these guys down here, these two humans, and I just noticed that there was something sitting on this rock next to him. I have no idea if that's equipment of theirs. It could be there's also a black something sitting on this rock. So is this just a camera? Is it something that humans brought in? Now this looks suspiciously like that object that we saw in the other photo that the little guy was kind of holding, but I don't know what that is. I zoomed in on it and just not sure what's sitting on that rock right there. Um, there's not a whole lot else over there, but the first thing I started noticing when I was kind of panning up this way was, wow, this rock has those strange ridge features on it, kind of like in the other photo as well, but this time this really reminds me of like scales, like as though this were a giant creature's skin or something, and it has these giant scales on it, and that these are the scales that are layered on the outside. And then what you see here with these lines running vertical down the middle is when this building or whatever it was attacked with the plasma attack or the cataclysm, it ran down this way, so it went from the top, melted everything down, everything's melted down, and there was just a massive rush of fluid down this way, and it just melted it down this way, I think. Um, but you know, or was this a carving that was just melted and we can't see what's there anymore? But right now what it looks like is like these giant dragon scales or something, or reptilian type scales. Now you can see these as well, or almost like an eggshell. I kind of get that look from it as well, like because it's sticking out at us, and then you can see some more of the that scaly outer shell. Um, right up here it is. So, and then the other part of the mud fossil look of this image is the well, over on the left-hand side over here, majorly, because it looks like the head of a dinosaur or a giant rhinoceros type creature, maybe a triceratops type creature, but it's a very unusual rock formation here because it comes down into this parabolic curve right here, and it comes to a point like a horn, and it comes down just like a horn, and then it forms the forehead. So, and then it forms the nose, and it goes down. So it's like this is a giant creature right here that died or something, and it was I'm thinking maybe it was a giant creature, and then they built on top of it. Is my going theory right now. Um, and you can also see like it has its headpiece here, kind of like like I was saying, like a triceratops, I think they're called, would have, and then these um, like these spiky giant scales that stick up. Um, so that's a really big part of what we're looking at today. But the second part of what we're looking at with this is the carving elements and the structural elements, and the fact that this looks like a giant massive what at one time must have been so incredible to look at, because this entire thing that you'd be looking at would look like there'd be statues everywhere, thousands and thousands of statues and images and carvings and just who knows what else, people walking around, and it would be the most amazing thing you could ever look at. Almost, it would just be like astonishing. But now it's all been melted. Um, and the evidence of that is if you start just on the big wall part here, um, you can see what might be left over from the melted carvings that were here. So I believe the way that it was is as you go lower down the mountain, the carving uh, height is taller, and then the next level up the height is a little bit lower, and then the next level up a little bit lower, and it keeps going like that all the way up. So right here you would have had these massive giant carvings, and you can see where the snow sits on the ridge, so that even though it all got melted, there's still some image left to for the snow to sit on and to show us what was once there. So what this looks like right here is a guy laying on his back, and then he's got something up in the air right here in front of him, almost like a cross, but who knows, it's melted, so it could be anything. Um, the other part that I kind of saw here was, and he like has like a construction hat on, it looks like, um, and maybe a beard, like a short beard, but also he's got this thing right here, kind of like he's holding it up or something, and then there's this what looks like a sphinx or a dog. It's hard to see it, but I'll actually oscillate this one so you can see it a little better. Um, it's pretty faded, but he's got like a sphinx type headdress on, and then here's the nose. It's like I think it's a dog head, and then here's his like paw coming out, and his leg and his body right back here, and he's kind of standing up at an angle, at a 45-degree angle on top of whatever this guy's maybe holding up. I don't know. And then over here you can see that the snow is resting on this three-pronged whatever it was. I can't really make out what this was. Um, but then it just kind of catches your eye, because then above that, like I said, as the levels go up, the depictions get shorter in height. And right up here you can see like all the way across there would have been tons of carvings or images of some sort. Now, were they carved into stone, or was this before it was turned into stone? Was it another material? Was it wood? Was it some other material? You know, that's a good question, because we know that a lot of the ancient megalithic structures were in fact not at one time stone on the outside. Um, but like right here, you can see this guy. He's like was a carving of maybe a guy with a fish hat, like a pope type hat on. Um, you can see just there were a lot of carvings. It's hard to really make out much. I looked pretty close at a lot of these, and it's just you get more of the general feeling that that's what was there than being able to make out specific images at this point in time. But then above that, you can see this whole level that goes across. And then up here, I was definitely seeing some anomalies, and we're going to talk about some of the anomalies here in just a minute. But I just wanted to get you guys a good look at how these carvings, see across, all the way across, there were carvings, 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 or statues. Actually, so that's the other thing. These were probably three-dimensional statues standing on a surface that goes all the way around. And then when the plasma hit, you can still see the levels as it goes up, but it's not as pronounced anymore because it all melted down. And over here as well, you can even see how it all melted down. But that these were probably carvings at one time or statues. Okay, so now let's look at some of the anomalies that I found. Um, and that'll be the last part that we'll talk about on this, is that over here, the first thing I noticed was that like this area right here looks really weird to me. It almost looks like a little miniature castle with like a little window, and then like another little tower right here, and maybe a third tower here. Um, but also this right here looks like a guy looking at us. So I'll zoom in a little bit at it, and so that leaves the potential that are these also what are these? But this kind of looks like a little guy looking at us. If you zoom in closer, you can see his eye, his eyebrows, and his mouth, and then his nose. So um, I'll let you guys decide what that looks like. I'm going to oscillate that one a little bit for us, just to make the three-dimensional kind of aspect of it stand out a little bit more. The other thing I see too here is I see these little windows, almost like when a house gets snowed on and then you still see the windows on the house. I see that here a little bit, and there's other parts where I see that as well. So up here, let me put the contrast back up a little bit and the shadows back up a little bit. So back where we were looking earlier is where I'm seeing some more of this kind of miniature city aspect. Up here, I also get that same feeling. So I see windows on here. I see other little miniature, like a little miniature city built into the side. And I see this kind of buried in snow under here. And also then over here, all the way across this ridge, I'm seeing what looks like a bustling cityscape built on a mountainside. And then if you go up, you'll see it all the way up. So like here's all the little windows. You see all the little white windows. So I think maybe that's how they're disguising themselves. They're just, they're having white windows so that when you see that, you just think it's snow. But it looks like little windows everywhere, like a huge civilization would be living there. And then they can just go inside the mountain whenever they want to travel. They don't have to go on the outside here. They can just go on the inside. And they can just come from, up there, go all the way inside, pop out, down here. Who knows where else they can pop out? Probably everywhere, all over the place. And then another anomaly that I saw was up here, and it was right here. Like I said, it looks like it would be carvings, and so could these be leftover melted carvings? I don't know, but this almost looks like a real entity standing there in front of the wall. Um, and actually, he kind of gives me that same vibe as the guy in the last Kailash video that has the white hat. So I'm making out a hat, almost like a wizard hat, is what it looks like. And then here's his face, his head, like almost like a gray alienish look with the thin neck. And I guess this is would be his body or something. And then like maybe his buddies right here. And then either these are carvings in the background or there's other people cloaking themselves with them. There's maybe a whole group standing there. So that's what I'm seeing on this particular image on this picture, guys. So Mount Kailash is super interesting. It just keeps getting more and more interesting the more I look at it. And these are only like the first two photos I've even looked at. I haven't even started to look at the other parts of the surrounding buildings and structures that are around Mount Kailash, as some of the other YouTubers like Roger in Kansas City has done videos on. I don't even know the name right now. I have to look it up and go look at those pictures now because there's just so much to see around this area. Um, Before I end this video, the one last thing that I'll show you is I'm going to compare what I was telling you to imagine here, which is the levels going up with the statues and everything on them. So I pulled up some images just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, and that would be these modern day temples that are still around. And here we go with all the statues going up. This would, be likely what it would be like on a massive scale. Here's some of those temples, and then just imagine 1,000 degrees plasma dumping down on top of this or hitting this in a wave, and then just it's all melted, and then when it dries out and it's just like a rock, just looks like a big lump, but you can still kind of make out some of the features of what was there. And then the other part about this too is the energy, free energy technology aspect of it. So I'll give you my ideas on that right now. Uh, so these antennas at the top that we see, and then we do know that there's energy created when you take a long metal rod and you put it in the air. Actually a current created from the top to the bottom of the rod, depending on what metal it's made out of. And so that current, in my opinion, can be harnessed. That would be the etheric energy that we can harness. And that's what they used to be able to do. That's what all the research now with mud flood is finding out with all of the ancient Tartarian civilization. And we can still see the evidence of all the old photos, as well as in a lot of the modern day structures that are still standing from back then, back before the big history resets that have been perpetrated on us, and the erasing of history. And so a big part of that, in my opinion, from what I've seen, is surface area plays a very big part in it. So here's my theory, is that the reason they put all these statues on here and everything like this is not just because they want to create this amazing visual uh, panorama of images, but also because it creates more surface area on the structure, and that surface area is helping to harness the energy, the free energy. So the more surface area, the better, basically, when it comes to that. So that is the last part of this presentation today that I wanted to show you. And so, is Mount Kailash a building? Is it a mud fossil? Is it just a big rock that was formed hundreds of millions of years ago in a big bang event that led to this random set of events that we're in today, you be the judge on that one. Thanks. Bye bye.